Okay, so we are going to start the presentation right now. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, professor. Good morning, classmates. So in today's presentation, we are going to talk about Moby Dick. Our group is composed by Martin Alvarado, Catalina Olivares, and me, Mauricio, who is speaking. Catalina, could you change the slide, please? Okay, so to begin with, the index of this presentation is the following. We're going to talk about the author and the context. And second, we're going to talk about the plot, which is Martin's section. And finally, Catalina will talk about the analysis of this book. Okay? So, first, like before starting the presentation itself, we thought it would be better to start with a little game. So this is an online game, which is called, the game is Word Cloud. So what you have to do is to go please to this website. You can use your smartphone or your computer. Could you guys enter the website?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay. So give me just a second. Can you guys see my desktop?
Yes.
Okay. So you will have to enter the following code. It's 70, 23, and 63. It's at the top of the page. Can you guys see it? Okay, yeah, so the idea is that you can answer the question, what concepts or words do you think that will appear in this book? Okay, we have, for example, sailor man. Okay, yeah, whaling. So the idea is that you write as many words as you think. Okay, so we have ship, we have ocean, we have huge, any others?
I think that's enough.
Okay, so yeah, so we have words like whaling, huge, shark, children. So many of these words will probably appear in this book. The power of the sea, that's right. Anger. Okay, so
Many interesting concepts over there.
yeah, and they're closely related. So the idea is that you keep these words in mind, and when you hear the story, maybe you can notice whether they were present or not. Okay, so we'll keep these words in mind. Okay.
I'm gonna continue with a little trivia. We want to ask you these questions and for you to keep in mind during the presentation. And maybe you can answer that in the end of our presentation. Yeah, the first one is the book Moby Dick and the Starbucks coffee chain have a certain relationship. What do you think it is? Okay, please keep that in mind. And the second one is, what do you think is the relationship between Moby Dick and Chile? Mauro?
Okay, so we're going to start with the author of this book, Moby Dick. So we're going to start with a quote that says, "It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation." So as you can see, the author is Herman Melville. This is the author of Moby Dick, okay? Catalina, could you please change the slide? Okay, so who is Herman Melville? Herman Melville was an American writer of sea adventure novels. So as you can probably know, Moby Dick is a sea adventure novel, which has to do with topics related to the sea and voyages and ships, whales, etc. So this author writes mainly about these kinds of topics. He has many books related to the same theme, let's say, the sea. He was from New York, the United States. Okay, he was from New York, the United States, and he was from a very big family composed by 9 people. So when his father died, this family was in bankrupt. They had a lot of economical issues. They had no money. So Herman Melville started to search for work. He wanted to get a job, but he could not get a job. So he eventually became a writer. Okay. And he also started working as a cabin boy in voyages in sailing ships. Okay. And he also worked as a teacher for some time. So as you can see, he did many, many things. Okay, but the main thing is that he was from America, from a family with economical issues. Okay. Now, in terms of his experience, as I was saying, he could not find any, let's say, ordinary job in where he was in the United States. So he eventually accepted his grandfather's advice to become a cabin boy. So he started to go to these voyages in merchant ships, such as the St. Lawrence, or a whaling ship, which is called the Acushnet. So he mainly went to 2 voyages in which he learned a lot of things about the sea, a lot of things about ships. So he had a lot of experience, which was reflected in his books later. And sorry, he also had a very interesting experience when in one of his adventures with his crew, he was captured by some people in an island. Okay, so he was captured and he wasn't free, but he was treated well, so he had no problem in terms of, for example, being damaged or something like that. Then he came back to the USA after 3 years of having these sort of adventures, and he found out that his family was still in bankrupt. Okay, so he started writing more when he came back from these sea adventures. Okay, now in terms of the career, Moby Dick was one of his most acclaimed pieces of work, is the most famous book of his. And however, when this book was released in 1851, the book was not very well received by the audience. It actually had very bad critics. It wasn't until a long time passed that this book became very like a huge piece of work, and represented, let's say, romanticism, because it contained lots of elements of romanticism. This book, Moby Dick, was actually inspired by many real events. One of these is the Essex whale ship. And what is the Essex whale ship? Well, this was a whale ship that existed in real life, in which all the crew members, the cabin boys, all the people on the ship actually suffered because a whale attacked the ship. So they eventually died, or because of they drowned in the sea, or because of starvation. So actually, Moby Dick is based on real life events that occurred in history. So as I was saying, apart from Moby Dick, he has some other books that are related to sea adventures. For example, Benito Cirino, also Billy Budd, and Bartleby the Scrivener. These are some of his most famous books. Now, in terms of the socio-cultural context, let's say, we're going to talk about Romanticism a little bit to understand the context in which the book was written. So what is Romanticism? In very few words, Romanticism was a literary, artistic, musical, and intellectual movement that spread it through Europe. And what are its main ideas? So the ideas of Romanticism have to do with freedom, equality, and justice. Okay? So artists, for example, wanted to encourage the subjectivity of every person. They wanted to highlight emotions, subjectivity, moods, and psychological states because they wanted to challenge neoclassical history. They wanted to challenge logical thought or rational thought. That's like the core idea of Romanticism. Now, you may wonder, what were the accomplishments of Romanticism? Can you come back, Catalina? Thank you. The accomplishment was that artists were creating a lot of visual and imagery in terms of Romanticism. So, for example, they were making portraits and paintings about nature, the relationship of men with nature, etc. So all these pieces of work became part of the national identity and pride. Okay? So in very few words, this quote, written by the author below, which is very hard to pronounce, he said that if by Romanticism one means the free manifestation of my personal impulses, distancing myself from the rules set in schools and my distaste for the recipes of the academy, I must confess that not only am I a romantic, I was from the age of Romanticism. So basically what he wanted to illustrate here is that the idea of Romanticism is that you're far from the rules of the academy, of the rational thought. It basically sums up like the core idea. Okay, next one, please. And finally, as I was saying, the inspiration behind Moby Dick is the Essex whale ship and also the Moby Dick, which was a whale that was found. Can you give me just a second, please? Sorry, I had a technical problem. As I was saying, the Essex whale ship was a real story, and Moby Dick was also a real story. Next one, please.
Martin?
I was muted, sorry. But you didn't tell us about Mochadik. We will save it for later, maybe, for the reflection stage. Okay, nice. Well, I've been tasked with the huge mission of summarizing the character setting, the plot, the narrator, and point of view in under 8 minutes. So I'm going to do my best. I apologize in advance if I somehow butcher some components of this classical piece of work. So would you kindly move on to the next slide, please? Okay, starting with the characters, I'm going to no, the previous one. Yeah, I'm going to start with the Pequod. The Pequod was the whaling ship in which most of the adventure takes place. Okay, uh, the Pequod was a whaling ship that had two owners, the captains Bilbad and Pileg. You can see them in the right. Okay, and the Pequod had a very interesting crew. Uh, there is no consensus on which of these is the main character of the adventure, but there are two very strong streams or currents, I would say. The first theory says that the Captain Ahab is the main character, and the other one says that Ishmael, the narrator, is the main character. There is no consensus on which of those. But the Captain Ahab is of course the captain of the Pequod, which embarks on a very personal quest to take revenge on Moby Dick, the famous white whale. Uh, the Pequod also had three mates that were, sorry, they were people in charge of the whaling boats, the smaller boats that were manned in order to hunt the whales. Those were Starbuck, the first mate, Stubb, and Flask. There you can. I mean, the names are hard for me, but I found some images that may be helpful. Uh, the only thing that I think is important about these characters is that Starbuck, as the first mate, was like the second in command of the Pequod. Okay, and he was like the only one to voice his concerns about this quest of revenge. He was the only one that was against the desires of Captain Ahab, and goes as far as to debate if he should or not or shouldn't carry out a mutiny in order um, to I mean to not carry out the mission that Captain Ahab wanted to make. Okay, those were the mates. Then there were some harpooneers. That a harpoon is a kind of a spear that is used for fishing. In this case, whaling. We had Queequeg, Tashtigo, and Dagu. I don't know if Dago or Dagu. Very interesting names. The important thing about these characters is that um, the three of them belonged to a different race. Queequeg was from Polynesia. Tashtigo was a Native American, and Dagu was from India, as you can see in the picture. Then we have Fedala, which was smuggled into the Pequod. I don't know if you know what smuggle is, but he was in hiding inside the boat, inside the ship, only to appear whenever he was needed. He was specially trained and had a lot of experience hunting whales. So he was kind of a hired assassin that Captain Ahab had for the mission of killing Moby Dick. Okay, and then we have Ishmael, which is the narrator of the story, as I told you before, and he's not very important to the main plot, I would say, but he develops a very strange relationship with Queequeg. They become friends. I'm going to tell you later. Okay, will you kindly pass to the next, please? Katita? Okay, there are other characters that are important, which of course Moby Dick which is the whole catalyst of the plot. There is there is also Father Maple, which was a priest that our main characters go as they attend a sermon which was being held by Father Maple. The thing is that Father Maple was a former sailorman, a former whaler, so he was his sermons were directed towards the safety and the lives of sailormen and whalers. In this case, his sermon talk was about the I forgot the word, the unavoidable truth that I mean that a man should do everything within his reach in order to follow the unavoidable truth. That was like his main message, and you will see why this is important later. Okay, then Elijah and Pip both were very small character or they were so important to the plot, but both of them kind of foreshadowed what will happen next. They had like prophetic visions. And finally, the captains of the many whaling ships that the Pequod encounters during its travels. Okay, next one, please. Katita, next one, please. Okay, the setting. This well, the setting mainly is the Pequod, and because it revolves around its crew and the voyage that the Pequod had. But it departed from the island of Nantucket. You can see in the map the small island in the southeastern corner. That's Nantucket. That was like the main hub for whalers. Whalers always docked their ships in there. Okay, and the story starts from New Bedford, where Ishmael decides to go on a whaling voyage. As you can see in the map below, the Pequod had a very long voyage through the Atlantic Ocean, going as far as the Indian Ocean. So can you imagine the time that it took for them to arrive from Nantucket to the Indian Ocean? It's a very long journey. Okay, next one. I forgot to mention that this is in the time period is like contemporary to the time it was written. It's the 19th century of America. Okay, now the next one. I want to tell you a little disclaimer. I was very passionate about this presentation because I read Moby Dick, and I'm going to divide the plot in four arcs that I devised this division myself. I didn't look it up, so I'm going to point out the main events that, because the novel is very long, but I'm going to point out the main plot points that I thought were important, okay? So apologies if I missed something important, but maybe we will talk later about that. Okay, the first arc was the introduction. Well, the story starts when Ishmael decides to go on a whaling trip, and he arrives in at New Bedford, okay? He goes to an inn that was a kind of hotel in the time to spend the night there. Okay, but the innkeep says that they are full, but he offers to share. I mean, he offers Ishmael to share a bed with a very interesting character that is Queequeg. Um, so yeah, Queequeg and Ishmael share a room, as you can see in the picture. And if you read this chapter, it's really interesting because, I mean, imagine the situation. You go into a room where a big man is sleeping on the bed, and you have to lie next to him. So Ishmael was very afraid of Queequeg because Queequeg is a cannibal. He is a cannibal from the Polynesian island. Islands. Okay, so he was very afraid of him at first, but then he realized that he was not too bad, and he says something very interesting that it went something like I prefer to share my bed with a sober cannibal than a drunk Christian. If I'm not mistaken, that was the quote. And I found it very funny because even though he was afraid of him at first, he then found humanity in this character, and they became fast friends, and they remained friends over the course of the adventure. Okay, then you can see the sermon of Father Maple on the right, where they attended, Queequeg and Ishmael. They attended before they went to meet the Pequod, the ship in which they embarked on. Okay, the last picture that you can see there is after the voyage started. Um, oh, well, I'm going to say something first. Um, when Queequeg and Ishmael went to see the Pequod, they met the captains Bilbot and Peleg, who were the owners of the ship, and they warned them about the actual captain of the ship, Captain Ahab. They told them that the Captain Ahab was kind of losing his mind because he was coming back from a okay. Um, Captain Ahab was just back from a previous encounter with Moby Dick where he lost his leg. So they told Ishmael and Queequeg to be very wary of this man. Okay, so after they embark on the journey, Ahab makes his first appearance, and he says that this will not be a normal voyage. It will be a whaling voyage, but it is a quest for revenge because he lost his leg to this monster, and he will take his revenge no matter the cost. Okay, can you please move on to the next? Okay, the second arc to me are the signals because this piece of work is really full of symbolism. In one point of the story, for example, Queequeg, that you can see on the picture on the left, he falls ill. He catches a chill, I think, and goes with fever. So he is afraid of dying at sea. So he asked the carpenter of the ship if he can build a coffin for him when the time comes. For when the time comes, he will not die at sea, but on land. Okay. Um, Also, because of symbolism, one of the captains that they meet in their voyage, sorry, tells Captain Ahab that Moby Dick can only be killed with a special harpoon. So he makes the blacksmith of the ship forge a special harpoon for him, which is then tempered with blood from Queequeg, Tashtago, and Dagu, who were the harpooneers of the Pequod. And when they were approaching the Indian Ocean, the mast of the ship is struck by lightning. Okay, and this was kind of a foreshadowing of the events that were coming. Ahab, in the moment, he interprets it as like the start of the hunt, of the chase. Okay, so can you please move on? Okay, the third arc is the chase and the confrontation. Okay, um, well, this is I don't know if I forgot to mention, but I think that this happened before this arc. But the Pequod encounters 9 ships, other ships that were also whaling. Okay, Carlos, don't worry. The meeting, I mean, the presentation is being recorded, so you can watch the ending later. Okay, so the Pequod encounters other 9 ships that were also whaling, 4 of them had encounters with Moby Dick, and to different extents they were damaged by this giant whale. I am going to highlight 2 of them. I don't remember the name, but the captain of this ship was called Captain Boomer, and he lost an arm to Moby Dick, and he warns Ahab that he shouldn't be hunting Moby Dick for revenge, and he tells him to stay away. And he thinks that it's really stupid that he is trying to take revenge at something that is natural, like an animal. An animal can't. I mean, it only does what it's in his nature. So it's really full of Captain Ahab to go against that. Okay. And the other one that I want to highlight is the ship Rachel, which was a ship that was looking for survivors of other encounters with Moby Dick. It's going to be important later. Okay. So in the Indian Ocean, they finally spot Moby Dick and decide to give chase to him. Okay, so there are several encounters with between the crew of the Pequod and the Moby Dick. Each what the chase lasted for 3 days, and on these encounters, each subsequent encounter was deadlier than the last. As you can see, for example, in the picture on the right, one of the harpooneers who landed a hit was then pulled by Moby Dick, and he was entangled with the whale, and his corpse was tied to the whale. So when they later encountered Moby Dick, they could see the corpse of this man still tied to the whale. Okay. Fast forwarding to the last encounter that they had, Moby Dick finally rams. No. It's still on this arc. Finally rams the Pequod, as you can see in the center, the image at the center, finally sinking the ship. And when the ship sinks, it creates a whirlpool, as you can see in the picture on the left. And every single crew member except Ishmael was driven into this whirlpool, so there was really no survivors. Most of them died drowned. The ones that didn't die on the fight itself with the animal, they died because of the whirlpool. But Ishmael, can you please move on to the final arc? My final arc is the aftermath. Okay. What happened after the confrontation with Moby Dick? The only survivor was Ishmael. And why? Because he was thrown out of his boat at the beginning of the final encounter, and he was far away enough for the whirlpool not to suction him. And also, he survived because of a Quickwex coffin that they made for him when he was feeling ill. The coffin came adrift, and Ishmael could hang onto it and survive that way. Then, a few days later, he was found by the Rachel, the ship that was looking for survivors. And that's how Ishmael survives and lives enough to tell the tale. That's like the very summarized, the plot is very summarized. I hope you understood well. If not, you can ask later, okay? Finally, the narrator and point of view. Well, there are actually 2 answers to this. The lazy and boring one is that the character Ishmael is the narrator, and he narrates like the events years after. Okay, but there is also no consensus, and what I think is truly genius about this piece of work is that the point of view and the narrator aren't like truly consistent throughout the book, the novel. There is a duality between the Ishmael as a character because he participates in some of the chapters, but not in all of them. and the characters that he narrates as a character, for example, the chapters that he narrates as a character, they are like in first person and your typical character narrator. But the ones that are not, he kind of switches to a third person perspective, and I don't really understand much. I didn't understood it when I read it, but it came into my mind that it's really interesting that he somehow had an omnipotent presence as a narrator. Okay, so there is also a point of view struggle because there is no consistency in the point of view department. Some critics have said that Melville didn't really care much about point of view, but others, and there are a lot of research papers that talk about this, is that he actually did every little detail was on purpose, because there are chapters that, for example, are depicted as a sermon, other as a soliloquy, there are also dreams and your regular chapters. So there isn't really a single point of view. It's really interesting. You can pick a chapter and you like a random chapter of the book, and you will not know you will not know what kind of point of view or narrator will have, and that's really beautiful. Okay, I think that's it. Sorry if I bored you, but I'm really passionate about this book. So now we will move on to the analysis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think this is the end of the class. Maybe we can take 4 more minutes of your time, or maybe we can start the next session, finishing our presentation. You can tell me. I'm sorry, I'm not.
Still stay. I have classes at 10:50, so I can stay for you.
Thank you.
I don't
Dani.
know the rest or the teacher, but I have no trouble listening. I mean, even listen to it.
Yeah, I can stay here. The same thing as Daniel. I have a class at 10:50, so I can stay here for 10 or 15 minutes more. But it's up to you.
I really appreciate it.
I have a proposal, a very small proposal. As the presentation is being recorded, we can finish with the presentation, and if the questions are not, we don't have for the questions, we can start with the questions next session.
Sounds good. Good to me, at least.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, Gata, your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the analysis, but first I want to tell you that as this is a rich novel, may have many different multifarious different analysis and ideas, concepts that we cannot address in this talk. Okay, but to start, I'm gonna talk about the tone. Yeah, it is sometimes ironic, celebratory, philosophical, dramatic, hyperbolic, but that is because each chapter is written in a different way. For instance, one chapter is a sermon, the other is a thought, or sorry, a memory, or things like that. So any chapter will have a different tone that will give the reader a different perspective of the story. The themes we found relevant to tell you the defiance, friendship, duty, death, and revenge. For the defiance, I'm gonna sum it up. So I'm gonna say that the main character that represents this is Ahab, because he refuses to accept any authority, and actually he says that he can be defeated. Yeah, this captain wants to revenge against the whale, and because he feels superior to the rest of living beings. Okay, and the second point for friendship, first we have the crew, that they have a sense of camaraderie, and also this was the Queequeg. Sorry, it's hard to say. Queequeg and Ishmael had a very close friendship, as Martin said before. They started to think that their religion, their cultures were different, but they were willing to learn from each other and accept the difference and similarities that they both characters had. And finally, Ahab actually has almost no interest in friendship. And so those 3 points I wanted to share. For duty, I have that for Father Maple, the father that was in this pulpit that Martin showed before. His first duty is with God, right? For Starbuck, he feels a duty first to God, then to his employer, and then to his captain. So that's why he had a lot of arguments with Ahab. And Ahab, he feels duty with himself and with this idea of revenge. Yeah, the symbols. First, we have this maple pulpit, the Father Maple's pulpit, that has the shape of the prow of the ship, and we can see that it represents the leadership of the pastor and implies that God Himself is the pilot of the ship. So they are like there because of God. Then the Queequeg's coffin. It has different representations through the novel. This coffin, the people around him had the belief that it was eventually would float over the ocean to the sky, and actually in the end it provides Ishmael with a means of salvation. Okay, and importantly, the white whale and the pequod. The white whale was a very known symbol in American literature, but it depends entirely on who is noticing. For instance, for Starbuck, Moby Dick is just another whale that follows his own instincts because he's an animal. For one of the captains that were secondary, he thought that he represents that the whale represented a great price in both glory and sperm oil, but he thought that it was reasonable to let the whale alone. And for Ahab, as I said before, it was like authority, and he refused any idea of accepting this authority coming from this animal. But also this whale can represent in immortality or a myth to other, the good or evil, the glory and damnation, etc. I'm gonna start with the figures of speech. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do it fast. The first one, I'm gonna just read the more important points. His legs were stiffly crossed. His drab vestures was bottom up, twisting. So in this part, the imagery gives the reader an image of what this character looks like. The next one is hyperbole. In this case, it is stated for the millionth time. So it's clearly used with emphasis in order to catch the reader's attention. The oxymoron, this is a paradox that combines terms normally seen as opposite, like small and short with large and tall. So we can think that they fit so well, even though they are completely different. In the personification, we have the ship groaned and dived, like having this character of coming back to life. Yeah, well, it's part of the imagination of any person. Yeah, and finally the simile, that it's clear, it's crystal clear actually, because it says as cool as an icicle. Yeah. I think that we don't have to go further with that, but this is it, the figures of speech. To end the presentation, we wanted to ask you some questions and maybe have a reflection on it, but I think that it's quite late. I just wanted to know if you got the point of Starbuck and Mocha Dick. No? Anyone?
Sorry?
The questions that we asked at the beginning about Starbuck and the relationship that Moby Dick had with Chile.
Okay, so to answer the questions that we presented to you at the beginning, that we introduced you at the beginning, so the relationship between the Starbucks coffee chain and this book is that the logo of the coffee chain is inspired by the character Starbucks, the one you could listen to when Martin was actually talking. So that is basically the relationship. And the another relationship is answering the question number 2 as to what is the relationship between Chile and Moby Dick, is that actually Moby Dick is based on a real whale that existed in the Pacific Ocean that was usually seen in the coast of Chile. So that is the relationship. As you can see, our country has a little bit of connection to it. So Kata, if you want to add anything else?
I think I don't want to take more time from the audience, so maybe we could talk about it later.
We can start the reflection phase, the reflective phase, and the question round with these questions. I mean, why not?
But not now, I think.
Yeah,
no, next session.
I do agree with you that it would be wise to start next session. That would be not next. I don't know if we're going to meet next Wednesday, considering that we have a first assessment week and we're not having regular classes. But if you are available, we could meet to finish this a book report with a round of question on Wednesday. If you don't have, I repeat, if you don't have any evaluations. And considering that the round of questions is part of the book report, which is evaluation, we can leave it for next Wednesday. But I repeat, it all depends on the time availability that you have and the disposition that the rest of the class might have. What do you think?
At least
Mm-hmm. Can you, Martin?
I can, yes. Why not?
Mauricio?
Yes, of course, I can.
So this is an option, all right? Let's see how it works. Considering that the rest of the class might not have an evaluation scheduled for next Wednesday, we could finish the round of questions about this book, and then we finish the session. All right,
thank you very much. Thank you.
All righty.
All right.
Okay, so thank you for your book report. I have lots of questions, but I can't wait for Wednesday. All right, sorry, Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. All right, so I'll see you then. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone.
Sir,
Yeah.
on Wednesday, are we going to have time to present the Telltale Heart?
I mean, I would love to keep going with the book reports. I mean, if that's possible, yeah. If you really want to do it, I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you.
Now, are you?
Yes, I mean for Wednesday, because now we don't have time though.
Exactly. All right. So I'll see you on Wednesday. Any questions, please let me know. I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to upload this recording to the LMS. All right. I mean, sorry, to the YouTube channel, and the link is in the LMS to get access to it.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks
Bye.
everybody for staying. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I liked your presentation. I really love this book anyway. Thank you.
Me too, if you didn't
Bye.
notice.
Yes, ma'am?